you're way too female, you're way too young. It wasn't even implied, it was said. I used to pay a male friend of mine to come to those meetings with me.
Male ego get in the way?
Male ego is how I started an all-female agency. People always say business is business and pleasure is pleasure, and that they don't mix, but I completely disagree. The person you are at home, it transcends into who you are in business. I have never had someone come and ask me for a raise. It's not out of fear, it's because I proactively increase their salary when I know that the value of what they are bringing to the business doesn't correspond to the value that I'm giving them.
So Gen Zs, what is your take there?
I had to literally give my heart and soul to any employer. That pendulum has swung completely the opposite way, and we are not in a happy medium at all. They call it boundaries. It's not boundaries. It's actually disbelief in what's being built and a disassociation with what they actually spent the majority of their life doing. So the teacher calls me in and says, listen, Ada wants to do her show and tell on being a stay-at-home mom. I didn't even know she knew that term. I didn't really know how to respond. I didn't immediately say to her, I'm not a stay-at-home mom.
What scares you?
It's a very good question, very personal question, and I'll be very candid about it.
Jeni-Anne Campbell, welcome to the Blue Room.
Thank you.
So May knows a little bit more about you than I do. So we've been catching up a little bit off air. But just to start, run through who you are and what you do.
Jenny, and I have trademarked myself as the good businesswoman. Why? Because I was tired of encountering dicks in business.
Yeah.
And I realized that people always say business is business and pleasure is pleasure, and that they don't mix, but I completely disagree. I believe that the person you are at home, it transcends into who you are in business, and the two are not separate. And if you strive to be a good person in life, that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Why are we only striving to be the top in business, the best? There can only be one best. That's unattainable. But if every day we are doing little actionable things to be good, is that impact not going to be so much more exponential? So I'm the good businesswoman, and my goal is to advocate for good people doing good work in business and creating that exponential impact through leadership changes every day. I'm an author. I've written a book on how to look after your employees. I run events called the Good Business Room, where we talk about leadership, we talk about the challenges, and I'm not talking about top CEOs and entrepreneurs who are able to be part of the EO because they have enough turnover. I'm talking about the people in the trenches. The backbone of South Africa is small business. And ironically, mainly female-owned small businesses. And yet we never find a space where you feel like you deserve to be at the table. Or I know from my own experience, I was embarrassed to ask questions because I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I really want to create a safe space for people to come and ask questions and learn. So that's the event side of it. And then there's an education angle where from university students, helping them into the workplace readiness, from understanding how responsibility grows with you and grows you and changes you, starting out with the intention of being good, doing good work, and how to grow with that. And then workplace education in terms of going into corporates, doing workshops about good leadership. And that's where my book also becomes a bit of a workbook that we work through and help people from there. So big goals.
That's a lot.
Big goals. I'm enjoying the journey very, very much, and getting a lot of positive responses where people are finally feeling like they have a safe space to kind of talk about the challenges that they're experiencing.
That's awesome. I just want to go back to what you said. It's, we live in a country where unemployment is very high, so entrepreneurship is crucial. But SMEs get the least support, startups even less so. So you helping from leaders from entrepreneurial side, right through to corporate as well.
Right through. And the interesting part is that philanthropy has always been something that has been very special to me. So I sold an agency that I ran for 20 years. I sold it last year. And part of the agency model was non-profit creative work, because that also creates exponential change. And I've taken that non-profit angle and brought it through into the Good Businesswoman platform as well. So you talk about unemployment and how difficult it is for startups. I also believe that nonprofits are these small businesses. They are run like small businesses by people who have good hearts and usually zero knowledge on business. So part of the Good Businesswoman platform is enabling and encouraging and assisting those people as well. Our recent event that we had, when you RSVP'd, you could nominate someone in the nonprofit space or someone who's just creating an impact in their community, and they came for free. So half the people sitting in the room were people who are creating change and are leading people with no business knowledge and not knowing where to start.
Yeah.
So that is, for me, being invested in South Africa, helping build those small businesses, the non-profit, which I look at business, they are businesses,
Yeah.
and helping them kind of learn how to lead and grow.
I mean, non-profits, I mean, it's not for profit, but it still employs people. I mean, big non-profits can employ a hell of a lot of
Yeah.
people. Are you female focused? Does it skew towards females more? What's your
It's
sort
a
of
very
balancing act?
interesting question. So I am the Good Businesswoman. I am a woman.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I am not a feminist in any way.
Yeah.
And I believe that I've helped lots of male-owned companies in their leadership journeys consultant.
Yeah.
I've helped many male leaders as a consultant. But I am finding that the need for open conversation seems to be led by women. And in the Good Business rooms, there seems to be a very heavy female focus. The event we had in March was for Women's Month, and so that was a female
Yeah.
event. But no, I'm not only focused on females in any way. Anyone who has the intention to lead with integrity, you're my people.
Yeah.
And I'm there here to help anyone who has that drive.
Male ego get in the way?
Male ego is how I started an all-female agency.
Yeah.
Go back very many years ago, and I rented office space and shared that office space with my husband and his company. Every supplier and client that walked into the business used to immediately go to him. They immediately thought that he was in charge. Separate to that, I used to go to meet new client prospects, and I was young, and I would try, dress older, dress the part. I knew I was capable, and they would quite brazenly just say to me, "Why would I trust you with my business?"
Yeah.
And it wasn't even implied. It was said, "You're way too female. You're way too young." I used to pay a male friend of mine to come to those meetings with me. He didn't know much, and he would sit there and he would nod and he would make them feel special. I would diligently take the notes and do all the work and manage the business. And that, for me, changed everything. I made the decision about a year later that I was going to build an all-female agency, which I sold last year and is running strong. So yes, male ego definitely gets in the way.
It's actually quite funny you say that because, in sport there's that adage that if you're good enough, you're old enough. But I don't think that relates to business. Maybe these days in certain sectors, people would maybe take you very seriously young in the tech space or social spaces or stuff like that. But it doesn't translate to business. I remember when I started in FMCG and I tried to get a job with quite a big South African business. And they really liked me, and everyone said, Cam's your guy, Cam's your guy. And they kept saying, he's too young, he's too young, he's too inexperienced. But, how do you get that experience? They eventually ended up hiring me 6 months later. I don't know if they just waited or if the other person didn't work out or whatever it may have been. But he taught me a lot of lessons. He said, like, the rope's long. You can run with it or hang yourself with it. And he said, phone me if you fuck up.
Mm.
And he'd phone and check on me all the time. And he'd go, one day I phoned him, he's like, fucked up. I'm like, yeah, I did. He said, what did you do? So I told him, I said, what must I do? So he says, no, I'm not here to tell you what to do.
What do
I'm
you
here to
think you
help you
should
the
do?
solution. Come back to me with a couple of solutions. I'll help you pick the best one. And it was incredible. I learned a lot from that. He was very much a no sir person, very white, English, old, no to everything, very much a dinosaur, but in a good way. So I learned a lot from him, and he was the sales and marketing director of the business, whereas the CEO of the business was a very flamboyant, younger Afrikaans guy that spent money to make money. So two very different personalities. I spent probably about 5 years in that business and learned a lot from both. But it was that clear out. It's when I got into FMCG, I was in my late 20s, and it was like, I'd call it a brain drain in a way, or an age gap drain. There's probably a 30-year gap between everyone coming into the business and everyone retiring. And it was very old
Mm.
and male dominant. And then, you'd go to things like Shoprite Checkers Awards dinners and stuff like that, and you saw over the years more youngsters' faces popping up with all the big brands and all the rest. So it was a transition period, but it was still very masculine, especially at the top.
Yes.
Do you think that's changed?
I think if I look inward at my experience, I changed it. So, and then I'll get to what I think is happening contextually around us. But I think I was very lucky in that in my first job, now I'm talking I was 21, 22. My boss at the time had asked me to take on an intern, and he was still in school. And this young guy was 16, 17 years old, and he was far more talented than I could ever hope to be. I was a designer at the time. And I had two choices. I could try and, you know, pretend that I was more talented. I need to show him because of the age difference, which
Yeah.
meant I was now superior. It wasn't the case. And I remember embracing him fully and giving him all the credit for everything that he was doing. That ultimately started making me look like a leader.
Yeah.
And it
But that is leadership,
and
though.
he then got into the same industry, and he's one of South Africa's top illustrators and designers. And I took those learnings, not from what I'd seen around me, not from what I'd been taught, because it's quite the opposite, like what you say. But
Yeah.
how I had seen it make a difference is how I then started running my business. So, we worked with F&B, and we would walk into a room of these top execs, and I would have a 23-year-old presenting strategy. And I was confident in putting them in the room because I knew that she was capable. I have a CV come across my desk, someone fresh out of varsity, but you know that there's someone worth investing in. And if they have the aptitude and the attitude, I don't believe that age should and experience should make that difference. Also, in terms of salaries, I have never had someone come and ask me for a raise. And that's something I'm very proud of. It's not out of fear, it's because I proactively
Yeah.
increase their salary when I know that the value of what they are bringing to the business doesn't correspond to the value that I'm giving them.
Well, they're going to feel very undervalued if they have to ask in the first place, and the chances are they're looking around
Yes.
at other options.
Yeah. And it's not based on age. The salary that I would give you is based on the value you bring to the business. It doesn't matter if you're young. And I don't think that that is what happens around. The feedback that I got from the way I was running my business and speaking to other entrepreneurs and how my contemporaries were running their business, it's not the way that things were being done and are being done.
Yeah.
But I could see the difference in the staying power of the employees, and I could see the difference in the growth of the business that this formula works.
So value-based remuneration.
100%.
No, I couldn't agree more. But your staff retention, good. And I say it because keeping staff's one thing, but hiring the correct staff's another thing.
Yes. I spoke about this recently, but I've mentioned aptitude and attitude. I believe that critical thinking and creativity can solve most things in the world. It doesn't mean you have to have experience in that certain field, and it doesn't mean you have to understand certain things from the onset. But if you have an ability to be creative, I think that you can problem solve. And if you have critical thinking and you have that aptitude. So there are two things that I look for. Attitude for me in my businesses was understand we're going to be doing free pro bono work. Is that going to make your heart sing? And I look at their eyes, not what they say to me. I look at their eyes and how that instinctively does something to them. That either lights your fire or it doesn't.
Yeah.
And the second one is, do they have the brains for the job? You can have a good heart, but if depending on the work that you are hiring someone for, there's going to have to be the aptitude for that job. If you don't have the skill, but you have the aptitude and attitude, I'm fine with that. I will invest in you.
Yeah.
And what I have seen is when you invest in that kind of person, you do see that return. And that doesn't mean that they stay forever. And that's an important thing I think people need to realize because, the first person who ever resigned, I took that very personally. I was like, oh my gosh, it's, what have I done wrong? But you've done a good job. If someone has grown in your business, we were always referred to as the academy because people would grow so much in our space
And then move on.
and move on. And haven't you done a good job if you've shown people what a good company is,
Yeah.
they then move on to the next and hopefully breed that and again exponential change. So don't be afraid of someone leaving, but invest in them and look in your mind, kind of work out someone in this kind of age and position, they're probably going to want to be around for 2 years and then they should start looking. So you know what? If I invest for 6 months fully, I'm going to get a year and a half out of solid return from this person and then wish them well, you
It's
know?
funny you say that because I'm a massive believer that if corporate worked in a way that there's always jobs and always space to grow, I believe you can give a job a good 2 years. Like you can shoot the lights on the first year, you start to settle, you have a good second year, and then it's almost time to press reset and move on,
Mm,
not only for the person leaving, but for a new person coming in.
yes.
Fresh blood, fresh ideas. Well, joking off air, and I caught the back end of it. So your daughter thinks you're a stay-at-home mom.
She 100% thinks
Tell
I'm a
us about
stay-at-home
that.
mom. So recently, she's 5, and recently they all the children had to do a show and tell, and the topic was what you want to be when you grow up. So the teacher calls me in and says, "Listen, Ada wants to do her show and tell on being a stay-at-home mom." So I said, "Oh, that's interesting. I didn't even know she knew that term." And all the other children were doing fireman, architect, lawyer, these, the all of the
All
quintessential
the
tick
cool
box,
stuff.
cool stuff.
Yeah.
And she was absolutely adamant. And she actually started getting tearful when the teachers were trying to ask her if she was rather more interested in other careers. And I asked her, I said, "Ada, why do you want to do yours on being a stay at home mom?" And she said, "Well, mommy, you're a stay at home mom, and I want to be like you one day." And I, I didn't really know how to respond. I didn't immediately say to her, "I'm not a stay at home mom." I first let it kind of settle and I thought about it. And I realized that in the last 5 years, I have worked so very hard to create a life where I have been able to be present with her. Does that mean I don't work at night? No. Does it mean I don't say to her, "Ada, mom has to have a meeting quick"? No. Does it mean I don't go to the office and go to different meetings? But I am, when I am at home with her, when I fetch her from school, I don't rush her. She'll often say to me, "Mom, can I just play for another 5 minutes?" Sure. And I sit on the bricks and I
It's
watch
never
her
five
play.
minutes.
It's never 5 minutes. But, in her mind, that perception of slowness
Yeah.
made her believe that I was a stay home mom. So she did her show and tell, and we made a beautiful big poster all about a stay home mom. We did our research, and she did it with pride, and I was proud of her.
Awesome. How do you get that balancing act right? Because it's very, I mean, we've chatted to a lot of businessmen and women on the show. That balancing act of leaving business behind when you get home, it's important.
Mm.
Because it's also, like you said, it's being present. We are short on time, but it's very easy for us to just open a laptop or do this or do that. I think I've got a lot better at being
Mm-hmm.
present. Doesn't mean I'm any less busy when I am
Yes.
home, but just being present. So I'm glad you said about that 5 minutes extra time because I get it all the time. It's you think shit, got to get to aftercare. They go to aftercare 2 days a week. Got to get to aftercare early because I don't want them staying there like late and
Mm.
being the last. Because then you get there and they
Yes.
don't want to leave. They're having fun with their mates and like, Daddy, can we just stay another 5 minutes? Never 5 minutes. 15 minutes later, you're still sitting there, but gives you a bit of time to
Mm.
catch up and all the rest. I just go, I don't even get to watch them. I get told to go sit in reception and that kind of catch me up there. So how do you balance that at home? Do you have specific rules you set for yourself?
I think giving you a case study might help. Like, I'll look at the last month of my life. I was organizing the Good Business Room event, and I said to Ada, I need to, I'm having an event. It means I'm going to be very busy. But you know what? I would like your help. And she sat and like cut out little papers and stickers and things that I needed with my husband and me. And we kind of made it a family affair. I then also said to her, "I have certain things that I have to achieve. Why don't you help me along this way? And if everything goes well, I'm going to be very happy and it's going to help me in my career. And you can choose something that you would like because you've helped work in this process." And there were these toys that she wanted from Amazon that we purchased. I said to her, "My time is going to be difficult this month, but let's find something that we can do together." So she watches a show called Teeny Pings on Netflix. And we decided that every day we were going to draw it. I was going to draw a teeny ping and she was going to color it in and she was going to trace it and put it up on the wall. And it created this bonding exercise of this, like actively doing something together every single day for 30 days, that it made me be present, phone aside, and actively do something with her that she looked forward to every day. So it softened the blow when I wasn't around for the next few hours when I
Yeah.
was doing
They
something.
understand it a bit better.
They understand it a bit better. And what I've also realized is that there isn't any balance. I am not a balanced person. I'm a eat the whole slab, I shouldn't tell you this, but eat the whole slab of chocolate or don't eat chocolate at all kind
Yeah.
of person. And
That's me.
and I've realized that that is what entrepreneurship is.
Yeah.
There is never going to be a balance. There's going to be a month of hard grind, and then there's going to be taking a week off to spend time with your family. And that is how I manage that life. I do work at night and I don't mind working at night. I'm a night owl.
Yeah.
Then being able to take time for your child in the afternoon to be present when you fetch them. Main thing is put that phone down.
Yeah.
Switch it off. Pretend you are in a meeting, because if you were in a client meeting,
You wouldn't be
that
on your phone.
that client would be important enough for you to not be on your phone.
Yeah.
So you're lying to yourself if you believe that sitting for an hour with your child is going to derail your entire day. It's not.
How do you keep your daughter off iPads and small devices? Why I ask, because if I put my phone away or May put her phone away for a meeting with the kids, doesn't mean they're not in a meeting.
Yes. So I'm not going to take credit for that one. I think maybe I'm just lucky with a daughter who loves to be outdoors and go for a walk and take the dog for a walk and color in and do things like that. So we're very like, I think maybe, as a creative myself,
Yeah.
doing lots of creative stuff or outdoorsy stuff. So, but I'm not going to take parenting credit for that. I think it's driven by her.
Well, we got two very different kids. So one's like boy genius and the other one's like an epic sportsman. So I always just remind them, May actually sends them outside. It's like, you want an hour on your iPad? Go play for an hour
Yes.
outside. And I always remind them there's two of them for a reason, so they can play together. But yeah,
My brother always says I was made to be his entertainment, and he reminds me.
it's the funniest thing is the little one could be an only child quite easy. He'll just run around outside passing to himself, kicking the ball to himself. Um, let's speak through your book quickly, Feeding Unicorns. You can give it a little punt quickly if you want.
Okay,
And
so feeding unicorns. I think in every single industry, people talk about hiring unicorns.
yeah,
And I actually think it's quite a derogatory term, because you're saying that people are amazing, but because you want to pay them a certain amount and you want them to do so much more than what you're actually paying them to do. You want them to not be a jack of all trades and master of none. You're actually wanting them to be a master of everything.
yeah,
So the book is about, once you've hired these elusive unicorns that you believe are going to do everything, how are you going to look after those people? How are you going to feed them emotionally, intellectually, literally from a monetary perspective? How are you going to feed those unicorns to make them want to stay in your business and to help your business grow? Because doing good is good for business.
yeah.
So there are actionable steps there, from whether you are a small business owner, whether you are in a corporate leading a team. There are actionable steps in that book on how you can aid your staff retention and how you can look after your unicorns.
Amazing. So I'm reading at the top there, how good leaders make great teams. So May now, I was actually telling May, I think two nights ago. So I consulted to Sun International for 3.5 years on beverage. So I come from a food and beverage background, then hospitality. And I've never really had a mentor, something like that, but I met this guy, Rob Collins. He was the CEO of Sun International at the time. Prior to that, as CEO of Sturkinical. He had like amazing CV. And I walked into my first conference at Sun International. I was supposed to be there a little bit late, but I snuck in. And he was doing a chat. His whole campaign for that year was from good to great. He's saying we're really good, but like, how do we make it great? So, in other ways, say about getting on the right bus or putting your team on the right bus. He was talking about being on the right seat on the right bus, putting the employees in the right seats. So, I think the thing with unicorns as well is you almost looking at it as a lighthouse, but it's so unachievable for everyone else. So if you're looking for a unicorn, how does it make other people feel?
Mm.
How do you not upskill, but how do you encourage your workers that are feeling a little bit burnt out or struggling or feel maybe that they're not at the same skill level as their peers?
I think interesting one, because I intentionally build, I hire juniors, yes, but it's people who are going to, they're going to be those people who, once you've invested that time in, they're going to soar. And then I like to build senior teams. So you are dealing with highly paid, highly skilled people. And in small business, there's not often that overlap.
Yeah.
I think certain people really shine in very different ways to how their colleague is going to shine. And I have always been very, very open about the successes in the business. So if people have worked on a project, the very first thing I will do after a presentation is publicly praise the work that has gone into something. Not in a way that ever downplays someone else, because they always have their turn. And I think that kind of aligns to motherhood. When I was growing up, my mom never treated my brother and I the same. And that sounds bad, but it's good because she was always fair, but we had different needs. And, if he needed a cricket bat and ball, it was his time to shine and focus on that activity.
Yeah.
And a year later, it might have been me in ballet. So I kind of take that into business, where it, I don't believe that anyone in my business has ever interpreted their actions as being diminished against someone else shining, because
It's their moment. It's not
it was their
favoritism.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think when you allow people, especially in small business, because there's so much fluidity in how people can move and not just stick to one little thing, you really start seeing people shine in ways that they probably didn't even know that they could do.
Yeah.
And I would often say to people, I've got the infrastructure. If you want to build this as an avenue of the business, if you can show me how it'll work for the business, I'll be the bank. Do it. Yeah, and people either, they step up into that role, or they go, actually, no, this is terrifying. And then you start kind of seeing how this puzzle's all going to fit together. It's a beautiful process.
Balancing act. You speak about quiet responsibility in leadership. What does that mean?
It's that lead lessons that I spoke to you about, that behavioral and psychological shift that happens when you know that your decisions are directly going to affect someone else's livelihood. I think all of us know, when COVID hit and hospitality space, we had lots of hospitality clients. When you are faced with retrenchments, that is heavy.
Yeah.
That is that quiet responsibility where you know that your decisions are going to directly affect the food that goes into people's mouths. And I think that the reason why I call it quiet responsibility is it's not their problem.
Yeah.
The challenges that you are faced with, they've chosen to be an employee for a reason and not self-employed. So if you don't have a business
Your
partner,
cash flow is not their problem.
it is not their problem. And I always made that I never made my problem someone else's in my small business, because I didn't have a business partner. So I don't believe that putting that stress on an employee is going to get any value out of them, and it's not fair to put that burden on them. There's a quiet responsibility where you have to know very much how much information you should share. So for example, guys, we are going through a tough time. What this is going to require of you is the following. We're going to be doing overtime. We're not going to be able to do bonuses, blah, 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 blah. And tell them how you are what the course of action is, and have 100% conviction in that. Be certain. You can't sit there and show that you are wobbling, that you are terrified, that you don't know how you're going to pay salaries next month. That's why it has to be this quiet leadership and
So it's
quiet
kind of putting their
responsibility.
buy-in through leadership. With regards to, let's say, you as a person, you obviously, with what you do, you have to be very confident. What scares you? How do you deal with that? Because, first and foremost, we are a mental health and wellness podcast. And how do you deal with your own self-doubts?
It's a very good question, very personal question, and I'll be very candid about it. I am an introvert, but when I was younger, I always felt a sense of comfort when I was on a stage, because I could play a part. I remember going to a payphone, and when I was 12 years old, yes, I was born in the 80s. I was going to say Tiki Box.
Payphone, I think we're probably the same age.
Yeah, 83.
81.
Yeah. So I went and set up an interview. I found KTV and I set up an interview for myself at 12. And I said to my mom, I want to be a KTV presenter.
Yeah.
I was a TV presenter.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. And my mom said, over my dead body, you're never going to go into that kind of industry. And my goal was to become a top billing presenter. And, using intellect and traveling the world. Like, I mean, that was
Yeah.
the ultimate. And she just said no. And I remember also feeling that those nerves of when you're standing behind in the wings, the curtains of a stage,
Yeah.
that those nerves where it's all consuming, like you almost want to vomit, but you're so excited,
Yeah.
and that elation that you feel afterwards. Then going to varsity, I studied information design, and the rest of my career, I ended up sitting behind a computer. Loved what I did, started building my business. Many meetings were remote, you kind of just find your confidence in your skill and not confidence in yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I got to a point in my career where I realized I can do this, but I don't feel nervous anymore. I'm naturally quite a nervous person, but in the wrong way. Like,
Yeah.
where am I going to parallel park when I go to the meeting? That's not what you should be nervous about.
Yeah.
You should be nervous about growth and change. And I made a decision that I want to feel nervous again. I want to do things that are going to make me want to vomit a bit beforehand.
Do
and
hard things.
do hard things and feel that elation afterwards. Because if something is important enough, you are going to feel nervous. And what I realized in my career is I wasn't feeling nervous anymore. So my advice to anyone who is, you say you need confidence. I'm an introvert. I am not the person who's out loud and proud. I want to feel nervous. I want to challenge myself. I want to see where I'm going to fail and where I'm going to fly. And I think it's a beautiful space to be. The challenge in today's day is that it's very public.
Yeah.
I started doing sort of video social posts a few years ago, and someone very close to me in my family said, Jen, I don't know if you should be doing this. This is not coming across really nicely, and it's not really you. And you just, and I said, well, you know what? Thank you for the feedback. I'm trying.
Yeah.
And I'm putting myself out there. And if people want to judge that, the only people judging it would be the people who aren't trying. But I'm happy to get constructive feedback from the people who are doing it if they can tell me how to do it better. So I'm happy to fail. I'm not scared of failing. And I quite am excited to be nervous.
It's actually a nice way to put it. It's funny how we ended up like here, myself and May. I decided actually prior to her and our meeting, I wanted to start doing hard things because I'm an extroverted introvert. Like I'm an extrovert where I need to be, but I do have a good social battery, whereas the wife doesn't. She'll just tap out. But I never felt comfortable on camera or anything like that. So started getting back into sport and I got a couple sponsors and stuff like that. So I started having to produce some sort of content. So it's kind of snowballed, but I'll never forget the first day we went on one of the morning TV shows and May came on with me and she hates cameras and stuff like that. And she didn't want to get marked up because she wasn't talking. She was just going to participate in the background. Next minute, there's this little voice over my shoulder, not marked up, but talking, yapping in front of the cameras on national TV. But I think once it's also the environment that you find yourself in. I remember the first time I went, it was on the espresso show. And I was nervous and I got there. But you realize all those guys are actually continuity presenters. You speak about top billing. They must be the most incredible presenters in the world, the most incredible, because they're so witty and quick. Yes, they've got teleprompters and stuff like that, but they have to hit things on the fly and they just don't skip a beat. And I never felt so comfortable. It was so easy. And it was kind of where all of this came from, where May and I met and we just like both, I told her I wanted to do a mental health and wellness podcast because it was close to my heart. It's also very close to hers. And sort of here we are with different people all the time telling their stories. And a lot of people that end up coming on the show, I think more often than not, say that they introverted in a lot of ways, which is kind of weird because you're really putting yourself out there. Yes, this isn't live. So, we can crop something out or edit something out if there's a mess up, but you're still putting yourself out there. My biggest problem when I started doing curated content on social, I find myself becoming very boring because I was boxing myself to go, oh, you mustn't do this or you mustn't do that. But then
You
you
almost
actually
start getting directed what you know people are going to like or not like.
no.
It's
I think I became what people didn't want to see. I think anyone that has potentially followed me over the last couple of years do it because of who you are and what your personality is, what you stand for. But now you start trying to dull your own light to go, okay, cool. I'd rather be a little bit gray or vanilla and suit everybody than really excite certain people. So I think it's if you're doing something, it's not going to be for everyone. You're not always going to be everyone's cup of tea.
no, I've experienced that a lot in my life. I did a post recently about like I often consider myself a Guinness. You either like me or you don't.
Yeah,
And as long as I live every day with integrity and I am doing my best, you're not going to please everybody.
yeah. Well, it happens. It definitely happens. So I've got a question about your book here, which I haven't read yet because I've just got it now. But I'm definitely. I told you I'm going to read it, and I don't read. In your book, you call high-performing team members unicorns. What makes someone a unicorn?
Someone's a unicorn when it's beyond expectation, almost disbelief. Like when they performing way more than one role and what you're actually paying them to do. And more today, we are expecting employees to come into an environment and take on more than a given role. I get CVs coming across my desk, probably 10 a week. And even how people are presenting themselves, you can see that they don't feel confident in just saying that they do one thing. They need to know a variety of programs. They need to be AI generalists. They need to be able to perform so many different roles in order to stand out. And I think that there is that expectation from employers to financially try and get a quick win and go, let me hire someone who's actually going to perform two roles.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, it's terrible on one hand. And if you are going to do that, then I believe that you need to be looking after these people in a way that reflects that value. And that is why the book exists.
I'm definitely going to read it because we're actually at that stage now where we're going, listen, we need to scale. Where do we do it? Do we do it up here in Joburg? Do we do it at our offices and warehouse in Cape Town? But we do need an all-rounder. We can't go and hire, let's say we need 3 specialists. We can't afford to go
Mm.
and do that. But right now we're like, cool, we can afford one. But who do you who do you hire? Do
Yeah.
you hire someone that ticks all of the boxes moderately, or do you go for a specialist?
My advice would find someone who believes in what you're building so that you don't say it out loud and hopefully they don't watch this, but someone who in 5 years' time can be brought into the fold of the business of what you're building, whether it's profit share or something
Yeah.
like that. So finding someone who has the right attitude, believes in what you're building, they have the aptitude to learn a variety of skills, and then invest in that person, make it worth their while that they are going to give as much as they can. And then when you see that investment coming back from them as well, invest, let them be part of the win.
Yeah.
So I would say rather let it be a generalist who you're going to upskill and let them be part of the win.
So interesting question. And it's something I always fight myself on. The work ethic of youngsters these days, call it your Gen Zs, as an example, us being millennials.
Challenge.
Yes. And my reason why I'm asking is their skill set is incredibly vast. They could, if the work ethic was there, Gen Zs would be the most incredible people to hire.
Mm.
But I think they're very good at selling themselves. Like if there are any really good Gen Zs out there with good work ethic, please DM me. Like they that's what I'd term a unicorn, a Gen Z with work ethic. Not to say there isn't, but I think they've also grown up in the age of social media, highlight reels, fast
Mm.
wins, get rich quick schemes. You know, we a little bit dinosaurs and archaic, where it's like hard work, you will get there, have a plan type thing. So it is a balancing act. So Gen Zs, what is your take there?
So, two things. I think that the environment I grew up in was toxic. I used to shower at the office. I used to work through the night. I believed that I had to literally give my heart and soul to any employer. I think that the pendulum has swung completely the opposite way, and we are not in a happy medium at all. And I believe that this generation, they call it boundaries, but it's not boundaries. It's actually disbelief in what's being built and a disassociation with what they actually spent the majority of their life doing. And it's about where people they're being fed on social media where work must just be work. And you know, your life that you should be building outside of that is what is important. And yes, it is. But for self-fulfillment, should your career not be part of what you're building?
Yeah.
And if people believe in what they're building, they're not going to mind giving a little bit more to that. In my business, the way I would run it is that if you needed to go do something from 10 to 11 to 12 during the day, do it and then work at night.
Yeah.
Give of the one for the other and vice versa. Whereas the boundaries that people hide behind in that generation is what is actually, they're cutting off their nose to spite their face.
Oh, that's my personal time now, but they're
Yes.
not willing to do it during the day.
Yes, don't expect me to give of my time for you and my business hours if you're not prepared to do the same for me.
Yeah.
If you get into, and it's like any relationship, a personal relationship is the same as a work relationship. If you are going to be accountable and you're going to be as giving as you are as receiving, it's
Yeah.
going to work. So I do think that they've been fed this narrative of such strict boundaries, but they don't have the life know-how or experience yet to know what that actually means. So they're just giving you a hard no. I will not drive to an office. I mean, I get that all the time. I will not drive here. I will not do this. They haven't even seen what the benefits could be from being open to more.
Yeah.
So I think that finding someone who, and I'll go back to what I said to you, finding someone who believes in what you're building, that will automatically mean that they're going to be open to growth themselves if they believe in it, because they feel like there's something in it for them.
It'd be quite a tough one though, because the skill set I'd be looking for would be a Gen Z skill set,
Mm.
but a millennial work ethic. So it is tough. There's
So
a
it's
trade-off.
what's in it for them. If you can show them what's going to be in it for them with that selfish mindset that they have, they would then have the buy-in.
Yeah.
It's not come work for me, build my thing. It's come work for me, be part of our thing,
Yeah.
and build with me.
It's a tough one. So just in closing, because May gave me, sure, how many questions here? Close to 30 questions. I've used 2.
Okay.
So we've had a good chat. So just in closing, not on the questions, but I'm going to ask, like, what is the legacy you want to leave for your daughter? And when your daughter enters the workforce one day, what kind of boss would you want her to have when she starts? And then what kind of leader would you like it to be when she progresses through that?
Okay, 2, 3, very
A whole bunch of
a
questions.
bunch of questions. The legacy that I would want to leave. I I've said it to my husband in everything that's not work based but personal, is that I always want to leave every person I encounter better off than when before meeting them. So if that is someone who you've employed in a personal capacity to work at your house, if that is someone who is a supplier who is going to be engaging with you, it's little things from giving positive feedback to someone who has done a job for you a month later who they haven't had feedback. It is promoting other people in business when you know an opportunity would suit them, not being selfish and
Keeping it to
thinking that you
yourself.
want to keep it for yourself.
Yeah.
All those little actions, I think, will create an impact that goes far beyond your immediate circle and things that you will never know you actually impacted. So the legacy for me is that I just want people to realize that you don't have to strive to be the top or the best. And if you are just striving to be a good person at home and in business, and every single moment thinking, am I making myself proud? Am I behaving with integrity? Am I positively impacting the people around me? That is going to create exponential change. Hopefully, the people you're encountering are going to do the same. And if they do good things for you, you do good things for them, it just starts to ripple.
Yeah.
And wouldn't that be an incredible movement for people to just don't be a dick, just be a good person? And I really, I think it's as simple as that. Just be a good person.
And for your daughter?
For my daughter, I think people always say to their children, you can do anything. And I disagree with that. I can't throw a ball. Like, I can't catch a ball. If you threw a live animal at me, it would unfortunately come second best. There's certain things that I can't do. What I would want my daughter to understand is that she can try anything and don't be afraid of failing at it. I'll give you an example. When I was in grade 2, I wanted to play netball. All my friends were playing netball. And I was so bad, ball skills, that the teachers just said, no, you can't be in one of the teams. There's the A team, B team, C team.
Yeah.
At that age, I went and lodged a formal complaint of my own volition. And they said, okay, fine, you can be in the D team. So I was in a team of 1. I was in the D team. All my friends were A, B, and C. But it meant that I got to practice with them. And I obviously never played a game because no schools have a D team. But I wasn't scared of failing and I wasn't scared of trying. So you can't do everything.
Yeah.
So what I would want my daughter to know is that you might not be able to do everything in life. It doesn't mean you can't try. It doesn't mean you shouldn't spend your life in curiosity, trying to learn and experience new things, because that's what life is. It's just it's as many years as possible of experience.
Thank you so much for joining us in the Blue Room. We've run out of time and it's been amazing chatting.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure.